What's going on, guys? This is Demian from The Lookout, and I am here with the ultimate definitive guide to Super 17. Yes, this is my Super 17 deck. Guys, this is the deck that I've talked about bringing to Nets when I thought that I was playing. So it's time for Super 17 to finally redeem himself. But before we begin this video, huge shout out to the Coffee Club, our lovely patrons. These are our $2 and up patrons. They buy us coffee, they keep this crazy content machine going. And guys, thanks a lot for your support. If you wish to join the Coffee Club, link to our Patreon is in the description below. And I think that's about everything. Roll the video! As with all of our videos, let's start with the breakdown. So this is the last deck profile of the year. And guys, I've put more effort into this deck profile than any guide that I've ever done. So strap in, it's gonna be a blast. This was one of my picks for Nets. I ended up casting. I'm gonna show you my deck list. I'm gonna show you the lines of play and interactions. It's super detailed. It's filled with slides and stuff, because this deck is complicated. And then, at the very end, we will answer the question, is Super 17 good? Let's find out. Also, before we begin, I need to give a massive shout out to Cody Wojtek, the American Viking, who got me on Android 17, on Super 17, showed me the deck, trained with me, and guys, this deck is wow. This deck is wow. So yeah, thanks a lot. Before we jump into the deck, we need to start with the game plan. So what is our game plan with Super 17? Well, Super 17 is a Z leader beatdown deck, and that's the part where a lot of people get the deck wrong. It's not supposed to revolve around you playing the Super 17s with blockers and being like, okay, I'm gonna beat down my opponent with these cards, and then everyone's mad because they don't have protection. Yeah, because that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to just brutally beat down your opponent with your Z leaders. And your Z leaders are definitely, when you see them assembled, at the end of the video, probably the best Z leaders in the game at the moment. Probably. So Z leader rotation is the name of the game. What do I mean by Z leaders and Z leader rotation? Well, every video is someone's first video, so we're assuming that at least a portion of you haven't seen a green Super 17 in your life. So here's what he does. He has 3 Z leaders. So you have the standard boy, he's your default Z leader. Then you have Edgy Tears, he is the beatdown leader, and then you have the blown Game of Thrones leader. That's the tanky side, the Incest 17. So yeah, basically you're shuffling between Edgy Tears and Game of Thrones through default standard boys ability. That's it for now. We will return to Z leaders a bit later in the video. I will go briefly over the Mulligan. So these are the things that we are looking for usually. A 1 cost Android 17, usually this one. I prefer to go with this one because this one has barrier, and then you're looking for Super 17s. You need your Super 17s because they allow you to start rotating your leader. A couple of extra tips regarding the Mulligan. So it's okay to start with Forced Fusion. This card is the best card in the deck by far. It's not a bad opener in some matchups. So if you're facing a leader which must attack a leader to draw, or like doesn't even draw with attacking, or doesn't have any incentive to attack a battle card, then this is a great opener. Regarding Hellfighter 17, you only keep it if you don't get the 4-drop in your opening hand, because the 4-drop is usually used to set up your awakening. But Hellfighter 17 can also do that. However, then you don't really have a turn to play unless you draw into the 4-drop. But it's okay to keep it if you see it in your very first opening hand before the Mulligan. And the last thing, the most important thing that we need to go over before I show you the deck is the charge rule. There are some things that you just don't charge in this deck. The 4-drop, both of the 4-drops, it's okay to max charge one of them. Just one. If the game goes long enough, then you won't be needing the 4-drop Super 17 anymore. So it's okay to charge one. Same goes for the other 4-drop. But never ever, under any circumstances, don't charge the 6-drop. No. No. It's one of the most crucial cards in the entire deck. If you run out of Super 17s, you're kinda stuck. So don't do that. Never charge the 6-drop. Alright guys, here we are with Deck Planet. It's time to dive into the deck. We will be jumping back to slides regularly because there is a lot to go over in a lot of details. Like I said, it's not an easy deck to pilot. It's one of the hardest decks to pilot in the game, but it's super rewarding once you get it going. So, first off, for all of you who don't know what this leader does, front side, it's Android 20 and Dr. Mew, 10k, auto. When it attacks, you look at top 5 and you add one Android or one Machine Mutant, energy cost 6 or less, so it can't find the boss monster because it's an 8-drop, to your hand, and then you shuffle the deck. So it's a tutor effect when you attack. Awaken, this is the tricky part. So 4 lives or less, or when you have 2 or more energy, while 1 or more Android 17s and Hellfighter 17s are in your Z energy and battle area. And then you draw 2 cards and go down to 6 lives. What does this usually mean? It means that you need an Android 17 in the battle area and you need a Hellfighter in the Z energy. You need to have them in both zones. Then you can awaken. And on the awaken side, he is 15k, he's still Hellfighter 17, he's still Machine Mutant, that's important. Auto, when this card attacks, draw 1. Activate main once per turn. Add up to 1 card from your life to your hand, and then you choose one of your opponent's unisons and remove a marker from it, whatever. Activate main once per turn. Place 1 card from under one of your Super 17s under this card. Okay. For the turn, reduce the skill cost of Z Awaken of the default boy, the default Z leader, in your Z deck by 1 green energy. That's one of the things that you need to keep in mind. We are looking to Z Awaken as best as possible, because once we do that, the deck becomes genuinely insane. Now let's start by taking a look at the 2 crucial cards in the deck. By the way, we are running 55 cards. Doesn't matter in a deck like this because you're filtering and removing stuff from your deck so much that you can afford to go to 55. By the way, you get rid of these as fast as possible, so it's basically 53. We have Cell and we have Android 18. We are just using them to be able to rotate our Z leaders, but Cell is actually useful. Activate Battle, limit 1 for 1 green energy. You send this card from under your Super 17 Z leader into your Vorp, and your leader gains double strike for the battle. So it can be a surprise double strike. As Activate Battle, Android 18 is whatever. It's you do the same and then your leader gets plus 5k for the battle. Like it's genuinely useless. Now, let's start with 4 copies of Android 17 Forced Fusion. This card is by far the best card in the deck. This card is absurd. So, 1 energy 4k. Activate main if your leader is a green Machine Mutant and you switch this card to rest mode. You draw 1 and then you place 1 Cell or 1 Android 18 up to 1, both green and with an energy cost of 1, from your deck or drop under your leader, and then you shuffle your deck. So it filters. It gets the key cards that you need to start rotating your Z leaders. But the big important effect, and please keep this one in mind because we will be going back to this one. Activate main, limit 1. If this card is under a green Super 17 card, any green Super 17 card, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and place it under a Super 17 on top of this card. Then switch a Super 17 card on top of this card to active mode at the end of your turn. So basically restand. Keep this ability in mind, it's gonna become very important later. This This card is absurdly strong. Moving on to the next key card of the deck. 4 copies of Brainwashed Fighter. So this is the other Android 17. It's a barrier for 1 energy, which is great because you need one of these to set on the field to set up a lot of things. So it's cool to have one with barrier. When this card is played, you look at top 5, you grab an Android with cost 6 or less, a green Android, and then you shuffle your deck. It's just a tutor, but it has barrier. So that's the big thing. Now, a very confusing one. Hellfighter 17. 4 copies of Hellfighter 17, the Brainwasher. This card is your 1 card setup. It gets you 1 in the field, 1 in the Z energy that you need for only 1 energy. So, 1 cost, auto. When he's played, you draw 1. Yeah, sure, whatever. Replaces itself. Then, activate main. You place it into your drop, and then you grab the other one, the one with the barrier, Android 17, and you play it with its skills negated for the turn. So now that this guy is in the drop, here comes the complicated part. Activate main limit 1. If your leader is a green Super 17 or a green Hellfighter, and you place 1 green non-Hellfighter 17 from your Z energy in its owner's drop, add this card from your drop to your Z energy. It's a mouthful, but here's how it works. Okay, so basically, you need to play the 6 drop, right? You check its condition. It says, hey, Android 17 in the field, Hellfighter in the Z energy. You check your field, you see, okay, Android 17 is in play. Now you check your drop, and you see like, okay, this one is in the drop, he needs to be in the Z energy. So what do? Basically, you use his activate main, you check your Z energy. You choose any battle card from it. Literally anyone. You send it to the drop, and then you put Hellfighter into the Z energy. So you just switch places with them. Condition is now fulfilled. You have 1 in play and 1 in the Z energy, and now you can play your Super 17. Pretty crazy, yeah. Well, it's gonna get even more confusing because next up we have 4 copies of the SR, Android 17 and Hellfighter 17 synchronized. Okay, so this card is our one and only recovery piece. Basically, first off, it's both Android 17 and Hellfighter. It has activate main for limit 1 for 1 energy where we just get to play it. And it has activate main, limit 1. Place this card in its owner's drop. Play up to 1 Android 17 and 1 Hellfighter 17, both green and with energy cost of 1, from your deck and or drop with their skills negated for their turn, and then shuffle your deck if you have looked through it. This is a 1 card setup and a recovery piece. Once we get this out, we can immediately proceed to fulfill the 1 in play, 1 in Z energy setup. Before I show you how, crucial thing, don't charge more than 1 of these. You will at some point run out of your setup pieces and you will have to start resorting to the 4 costs. Let's say that you wish to play Onyx Lightning, but his condition hasn't been met. It's the same one, 1 in play, 1 in Z energy. So what do? You pay 1 to play this 4 drop. It's time to attack for whatever reason. Let's say your opponent's leader isn't 20k. So you attack. Alright, attack resolves, and then you use activate main. You send it to the drop to play Hellfighter and to play Android 17. Now here's how you do it. It's time to attack. You attack with literally anything. Anything that isn't the Hellfighter, and you combo with the Hellfighter from the field and you Z-charge it. Now your condition has been met and you can play Onyx Lightning. I hope that you guys are enjoying this deck planet / slide breakdowns thing that we have going on. I usually don't do this because it's a ton of work, but this deck is really complicated, so it's better to just show it like this. Now we went over all of our Hellfighters and normal Android 17s. It's time to check out the Super 17s. And we are starting with 4 copies of Super 17 Wicked Hell Machine. This is an amazing setup card. This card is really, really good. So 15k blocker. He has activate main, limit 1. You play him for 2 energy. if your leader is this leader, basically you play him from your hand and you place up to one of each Android 17 and Hellfighter, both green and with an energy cost of 1, from your deck under this card, specifically only from your deck. Then it says the following. Auto, you send 2 cards from under it into your warp. When this card attacks, your opponent discards 1. And at the start of your next turn, you choose one of each Android 17 and Hellfighter 17 with an energy cost of 1 from your warp. You play one of them and you put the other one into the Z energy. So you see what you're doing here. Basically, you pay 2, you get your Android 17 into play, and then you send the Hellfighter into the Z energy, and then you can awaken or play a different Super 17 or a lot of stuff. The only problem is that he causes you to tap out on turn 2. That's the biggest problem with this one. He taps you out basically. So if you can survive turn 2 tapped out, and you should be able to do this in the current meta, this card is great for setting you up. Here's what it looks like in practice, and this is the first time that we're going to be talking about the 1-drop. So you use his activate main, you pay 2, you play him, and then you put these 2 from your deck under Super 17. Now it's removal time, remember? The Android 17, the one from the anniversary box, he has activate main, which says if he's below, he's under Super 17, you switch him to rest mode and you choose any battle card, not ignoring barrier, and you put it under Super 17. So let's say you choose a Victory Strike for whatever reason, and you put it under your Super 17. Then the card is gone. It's permanently removed. You attack, his auto triggers. You send the droids from under him to the warp. Don't send anything else. Send the droids. Then, let's say your turn passes. You restand at the end of the turn. And on your next turn, you restand because of the 1-drops effect. And at the start of your next turn, you play the 1-drop. You play him to the field and you send Hellfighter into the Z energy. Moving on, we have another Super 17, the probably most important one. 6 cost, Super 17 Hell's Avenger. This guy is your main Super 17, not the 8-drop, this guy. So basically you play him for 1 energy if you have 3 or more. You do the whole 1 in play, 1 in Z energy. You draw 1 and then he gains double strike and barrier. And you put both of those androids under him. Super crucial, you put both of them under him. That's the most important part. And then basically he has an auto which is completely and utterly useless. You will never use it. When he attacks, you get to combo with 1 card from under him, and then you burn one of your opponent's Z energy. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, use one of your androids to do this ability. Never ever do that. You will need both of them to make a full Z leader rotation. The biggest problem with this card is that it's locked behind 3 or more energy. That's the biggest problem. It's not that good anymore. It's not so good that it should be locked behind 3 energy. But unfortunately it is what it is. In practice it looks like this. So you need to play it, right? So you activate main, pay 1, you place these 2 under him, it's time to attack. You attack 20k double strike. Never use the auto. Never. So you just don't use it. Attack resolves. And then you have your Z leader out, and you're like, okay, rotation time. So you remove 1 card from under the Super 17, one of these 2, and then you go into edgy tiers. Then it's time to attack. You attack with edgy tiers, and at the end of the turn it's rotation time again. So you remove the other android from beneath Super 17, and then you go into Game of Thrones to defend yourself. Now we get some time without slides, so let's go over some other cards in the deck, more specifically the real boss monster. First off, 2 copies of Onyx Lightning. Sure, whatever. It has a good interaction with the SCR. It has a very good interaction with the SCR. But the main reason why you're running this is so that you have more Super 17s to keep rotating. Basically, what it does. So, blocker 30k, activate main, limit 1 for 2 energy. You play him on turn 4. You do the entire put 2 guys from under him. And then he gains double strike, barrier, and dual attack for the turn. And then he has auto limit 1 if this is your leader. When a card is placed from under this card in its owner's drop by a leader skill, so when you do the rotation, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it, and then they discard 1. That's it. That's everything it does. It's not that good. It's not worth waiting until turn 4 to just do this, because it loses all of the protection, but it's a Super 17 and you need a Super 17 to keep rotating. Plus, you will see the secret rare, it works very well with this guy. Then the actual boss monster of the deck, Solidarity. That's it. I'm not even gonna read this one, everyone knows what it does. 3 copies of Solidarity. Now we're gonna dive into the defenses, starting with one of my favorite spicy tech cards in this deck, 3 copies of Son Goku Decisions Made. Now you might be wondering, Damian, why the hell are we using Decisions Made? Here's why. Because both of your Z leaders cost 3 Z energy. Yeah, so it's a 1 cost. 1 cost charismatic. Now you might be thinking, well, Damian, yeah, but if I use the default boy, he costs 2 Z energy, so I have to pay 2 for Decisions Made. Wrong, my friend, because you are playing a Z extra card as well. So whichever Z leader you have, Decisions Made is 1 energy. So yeah, there we go. Now we have a charismatic. One of the last cards that we're gonna take a look at with the slide is the other negate. 3 copies of Hellfighter 17 Desired Fusion. This one is phenomenal. You might even run 4 copies. I think 3 is good enough. It's a free negate, basically. It's counter attack, limit 1, negate the attack and play this card. Permanent. If your leader is a green Super 17 Z leader, you play this guy for free. So it's a free negate. However, here's the catch. Auto. When this card is played from your hand, choose up to one of your mono green Super 17s and it gains the following skill for the turn. Auto, once per turn, when this card activates blocker, switch it to active mode. You can stop 3 attacks for free with this one card. The only issue is that you need a Z leader. Now let's go through the rest of the deck. So we have 4 copies of Dormant. I used to run 3, I think 4 is the number that you wish to run, especially in this meta. 4 is a good number. You will find that later in the game you will have so much energy to use, so it's okay to leave 1 up for Dormant. Then we are running 1 Goku's Kamehameha Deflection. You can cut this one out if you wish to do it, I just like the card. Then we are running 1 Key Energy Absorb. It's a free negate, so counter attack, you negate the attack. Additionally, if the attacker was a Saiyan, choose up to one of your Super 17s and switch it to active mode. Very important. There are a lot of Saiyans currently in the meta. Permanent. If your leader is a Z leader, you can use this counter skill by discarding a card from hand instead of paying the energy. Then we have 3 copies of Cells the Earth Destroying Kamehameha. We are dedicated to being extremely tanky on the opponent's turn. Extremely tanky. And Cell helps us get there. Then 1 Android 20 Wild Creator. Can be cool sometimes. Basically, when you combo with it, one of your androids gets plus 5k and double strike for the turn, which can be your Z leader, so that's cool. 4 Great Saiyamans. Why Great Saiyamans over Paragus? You can go with a Paragus, but Great Saiyaman helps you if you get stuck with some of these 1-drops in hand when you want to go into this one, for example. then you get to bottom deck the one that you're stuck with. We have one Vegeta, Heated Fighting Spirit. You know what this one does. Not fully sold, but I mean, like, it is the best one. However, you can use Secret ID if you wish to do it. Overwhelm 6 might be a problem sometimes. It might sometimes be a problem, but you can probably get to it. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the SCR, Super Shenron. Super Shenron, also known as the poop dragon of Dragon Ball card game, the bad one, is actually hilarious in this deck. It's phenomenal in this deck. Permanent. It can't attack, and you reduce its cost by 1 for each card in your Z energy and drop. So it's a 1 drop. Activate main. Once per turn, if your leader is green, choose one. You choose one of their battle cards or unisons and you steal it. Sure, can be really good. You choose one of your battle cards and you give it indestructible for the game. Or you play any number of battle cards with universe, blah blah, doesn't matter. The thing that we are looking at is giving our cards indestructible. Because we can give it to our boss monsters. And if you give it, for example, to Onyx Lightning, horrible, hilarious things happen to your opponent. Horrible, very, very stupid, high value, hilarious things happen. Here's what I'm talking about. So you use the Dragon's Activate main, you give Onyx Lightning indestructible, and then you attack with it and do whatever. At the end of the turn, you go into Game of Thrones. And then when your opponent attacks, your auto triggers Restanding Super 17. Now, when he restands, it's still before the counter window, because it's an auto. So, in the counter window, you counter for free with the one that's gonna give Onyx Lightning dual blocker. So when your opponent attacks again, you just block with an indestructible guy, and you restand. And when he attacks again, you just block with an indestructible guy again. So there you go, you just took away 3 attacks for free with a 30k indestructible blocker and a free negate. And then you just punch them again with Onyx Lightning. Not a fan of the crappy Super Shenron Dragon. The card is hilarious, but you have some other SCR choices. Probably the best one, Cell Max, because yeah, 1 energy quad strike, 40k of course. Kibitobu is a cool one. Kibitobu is a cool one. It's a floodgate effectively. Or you can just go with tried and true Celzino. Celzino is super easy to play in this deck. Plus games go long enough for you to play Celzino and get its full effect. Plus you're really draining your opponent out of resources. So Celzino might sometimes just demolish the hand entirely. Diving back into Deck Planet, probably for the last time, it's time to go over the Z deck. So I'm just gonna show you guys all of the cards, and then we're just gonna have slides from now on explaining how the Z leaders work. So we have Default Boy, we have Edgy Tears, and we have Game of Thrones. So we have one of each. The other cards are one Jiren. I like Jiren to give one of the 4 costs in a pinch, the ability not to be removed, and that's it. You can just run anything else if you wish to. 1 Broly, so you can, for example, run another Broly, and 2 Z extras, the anniversary box ones. Now, let's go over the Z leaders. Let's start with the first one, Default Boy, the regular Joe, right? There's nothing interesting about this one. Well, no. Actually, there is a really busted interaction with this one. So he has Activate Main once per turn, place up to 1 green android with an energy cost of 1. You might already be seeing where we're going with this. From your deck or drop under this card, and then shuffle your deck if you've looked through it. There is one really hilarious trick that you can do with this guy that's gonna make your Z leader kinda busted beyond belief. Remember, the Z leader says any 1 cost green android. So you put Forced Fusion under him. You say Activate Main, you put Forced Fusion under him, and if you recall what Forced Fusion does, The card says you switch it to rest mode if it's under a Super 17, any Super 17. It can be a leader. And then you choose any of your opponent's battle cards, not ignoring barrier, and your Super 17 eats it. So, congratulations, you now have a Z leader which can, for free, each turn, remove any battle card. Completely for free. Then we have the attacker one, the edgy tears, the guy who watched too much Naruto and then went into Dragon Ball and he's all like, life is pain now. Anyway, we are going into this one every single turn, and he has a very cool ability. First off, he draws when he attacks, and then auto once per turn. When an opponent's energy is switched to rest mode by any means, switch this card to active mode and then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. So if the opponent switches an energy in any way to rest mode during your turn, this guy is a 20k dual attacker that KOs a battle card. Here is how it works in practice. So you start, it's time to attack, you attack, and your opponent is like, I am playing U7, the most scared deck in the format, so I'm gonna pay 1 and I'm gonna stop you with a Nimbus. Then you say Lamao, your auto triggers, you re-stand, and then you KO his 6-drop, or something else. And then you just kinda attack again and your opponent cries. If you wish to make your edgy tears even more punishing, here is the max value play. So you do your entire, with the default boy, you do the entire 1 cost 117 play to just KO anything, not KO, remove anything. And then if your you go into edgy tears, and if your opponent pays energy for literally anything, you KO another card. So just kind of by default, by doing literally nothing, you get to remove 2 cards per turn. And now finally, let's talk about the last Z leader, Game of Thrones, the defensive Z leader. Guys, this is, in my opinion, by far the best defensive Z leader in the game. By far the best defensive Z leader in the game. Why? Because both autos are extremely insane. First, when opponent attacks, you restand the blocker. You restand one of your Super 17s. Then, when opponent plays literally anything, when they switch an energy to rest mode, by any means, you KO one of their battle cards cost 4 or less. On top of that, you are a free Z energy cost leader, so you also get decisions made for 1 energy. So let's see what you do. So you're 20k, you get to restand the blocker, you get to punish your opponent for just playing the game whenever they decide to spend any energy, and you get decisions made on top of it, and you get free counters because you're a Z leader. And now tell me seriously that this isn't the best defensive Z leader in the game. The final section of the video is showing you how to defend. This will be your max defense guide. You can shut down entire turns with this deck for no energy at all, or like a single energy. Here's how you do it. Here's the defensive turn. So your opponent is playing Kefla for some reason, and they decide to attack you. So attack, your auto triggers. First off, this is the first thing that happens. Your auto triggers. It's time to restand. You target your Super 17 and you restand him. Now it's counter window time. So you use your free negate. You target Super 17. It becomes a dual blocker. Then your opponent is like, okay, I'm gonna pay 1. So they pay 1 for the 6 cost. Now your auto triggers and it's time to KO a card. So let's say that your opponent has a 4-drop, just for the sake of this demonstration, and you KO it. Then it's the counter window, so you pay 1, you play decisions made. You choose a card, you choose the 6-drop that they were just playing, send it to the Z energy. Now you have some other options depending on how the turn goes. If your opponent is adamant on spending resources and attacking you, you can either dual block with your Super 17, you can negate for free with your key energy absorb because you're a Z leader, or you can just go into combat and use your super combos to draw some extra cards. Congratulations, you've just stopped free attacks for a single energy. and you just kind of demolish your opponent's board and resources. Sometimes you might want to stop a wide board, so if you're playing against a deck which just has too much pressure for you to handle through these beans, then you just pay 1 and you go with Dormant. There, problem solved. The last thing that we're gonna talk about is some card choices. So there are some extra choices to consider, but there's not a lot of them. You can use Dr. Mew. He's similar to the 4-drop, he's just extra recovery so that you don't run out of things that you need to keep playing your Super 17s and switching your Z leaders. And then you have the shitty promo, like I'm not a fan of this one, it's just extra attacks. I don't have deck space for it, I'm just like, yeah, okay, sure, fine. If you have one of these, you can play one of these, because it's like extra attacks. And yeah, feel free to adjust the ratios of the deck. Before we end the video, it's time to answer the question, is Super 17 good? Yes, Super 17 is an amazing green deck. Super 17 is phenomenal. It's definitely not the meta deck, like Gohan is still infinitely better, but it's really good. I hope that this video has convinced you that Super 17 is actually good. However, we need to point out a couple of things. It's a stupid hard deck to pilot properly. It's probably one of the hardest decks in the game to pilot properly, and it still has some flaws. So even when you do everything perfectly, it still has some inherent flaws with like tapping out on turn 2, the 6-drop being locked behind 3 energies. These are some flaws that you just can't work around, unfortunately, but it's a very good deck. So yeah, Super 17, in my eyes, this deck has redeemed itself. I absolutely love it and I urge you to try it out. That's it for the video. Let me know in the comments below, will you give green Super 17 another chance? Will you give this guy another shot? Have I managed to convince you that the deck is actually good? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of your comments, I try to respond to everything. I love our little community. And guys, while you are here, hit those like and subscribe buttons. We are on our way to 4,000 subs when we're gonna give away a booster box. This has been Demian from The Lookout, and I'll see all of you in the next video.